Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel for today's video. I wanted to talk to you today about when you are created and how this narcissist situation occurs, in my opinion. So let's jump in. So, when it comes to the narcissist, I wanted to go over my thoughts on this situation because I've spent a lot of time on it. Whatever we receive here or don't receive here, we have decided that for ourselves before we were here. And this is under construction, so don't throw stones, but just listen because this is, free thinking and from the way I understand the biblical narrative, although I never really looked at it like this. But you're kind of forced to when you deal with the narcissist in certain situations. When you have situations occur in your life, they have to line up with the words somehow. So my best answer to it is that we are on this earth just walking out who we were always going to be. Meaning when we were birthed, the decision of who we were going to be and what we were going to do was already put into play and it was already over because God is outside of time. Now, this is in the eyes of God, not you and not me. But this is why things happen or have happened the way that they have. In my humble opinion, this is a theory under construction. Okay. It may change, it may adjust, but this is currently how I feel about it. And I believe I'm on a lot of groundbreaking material. I've never heard any of this stuff that I talk about on his channel, a lot of it. I don't hear it like this, but this is what the Lord has given me. And everything comes from the inside first, right? That's why the narcissist never has anything. They have to take, take, take. They have to, because you have to go inside to truly come from and dig in from your abundance. And they can't, you, if you have no true self and you don't look inside and you're not trying to heal, then you never will truly have abundance. Only other way you can get it is through stealing it. They steal energy, and in that energy has abundance for a time. But for you to perpetuate that, you have to continually steal abundant energy. But at some point, it gets cut off. And when it does, you lose. That's why a narcissist is always on shaky ground, or you are when you're with them. Steep. You don't hear this on other channels, man. I have to give God all the glory because out of humility, I have to say, anything that I have gotten, my wisdom and everything, he has taught me. So I give him the glory for that. But what I wanted to say is, we are walking out on this earth who we were always going to be and what we were always going to do. If we were going to find Christ, is my point, then at some point in your life, you're going to go through some sort of turmoil or a situation, or you're going to understand you need a savior and you'll reach out, you'll receive Christ, and your fruit will show. It's not to say Christ on the cross was obsolete or it doesn't matter or this or that, or we already know who we are and what we're going to be. And so it's no big deal. No, this is from the eyes of God because God is the Almighty, but it gives us a perspective into this looking glass of things of what the heck's going on here and how we can understand it as mere humans or humanity because God is much greater. I mean, he's everything. He is the ultimate everything. You can't put words on him. I kind of don't like the idea when people say that you're not going to know everything, but I do believe everything is here, meaning all of the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding is here to be found. So to say things like that is to make people not even invest time in it. And that's not what the Lord wants you to do, in my opinion. He wants you to continue to dig in because he wants to show people different aspects of him because he has many folds, manifolds. He's everything. And so you're putting God in a box when you say that the answer's not here. In fact, all of the answers to everything are in the word, but you have to know how to decipher it. And a lot of times we don't understand that. But once you do decipher it, you go back to the word and be like, oh, there it is. So, as much as you think it's archaic, it's not. So, this is what I think happened because the narcissist becomes a narcissist as early as, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But under or the age 18 is when they get diagnosed, right? Is when they're allowed to get diagnosed. And I believe that's when the grace of God fully comes off of them. It's kind of like when you're in a soul tie, a bad soul tie with a narcissist. There's a spectrum to that, right? You're trying to pull away once you learn, and then you wake up, and then you educate yourself, and then you know how bad they are, and then you're breaking these soul ties, and you're moving further away. The same thing happens with the narcissist and God, or God's grace on them, as they're a child, and as they get intertwined and fused with that negative energy, it becomes more and more on the dark side and less on the light side. So that's what I believe. And I believe if they can't get diagnosed till they're 18, I would say maybe that's a hint that generally God gives them at least maybe that long to have potential grace to turn the thing around. But after 18, he might be like, yo, I've given you enough time to grow into yourself. We don't know God's grace, but that's the case in my thinking. So on the situation of creation, so what creates a narcissist, or what creates us separate from the narcissist? Before we were born, we were created in the spirit, because everything first starts spiritually before it ever manifests physically, before it is birthed into the 3D realm, the earth that we live in, the physicality, where you can touch it or see it, look at it, view it, feel it. It has to first be felt, touched, and birthed and built in the spirit realm. And just like that has to occur, there's laws, there's rules. And in the spirit realm, the same thing. Whatever is here is going to be in the spirit realm as well, in some sort of fashion. Because partially you're being prepared to either go up or go down, in my opinion. So in your preparation, it's going to have similarities to the above or the below, depending on which way you go. It's going to be a long one. But what I'm saying is there's courts there, there's judges, there's rulers, there's rulerships, there is justice. All of that has to be in play. And you have to be fertile to receive. You have to be building something. So in creation, you're first created in the spirit before you're ever culminated in your mother's womb. Now, I believe that there is some form of between being created and put in your mother's womb. I used to say that we were all tested in a controlled environment and had all the same tools, and some of us went wayward and some of us didn't. Some of us were God fearing, and some of us were stealing, thieving, and in the controlled environment, right? But I kind of like to say it's more or less the thoughts and the actions are as your birth in the spirit. You have probably, I'm thinking that between, it could be this is a split second that this occurs, because God is outside of time, or it doesn't even take any time. It's just you are. Okay. And you could be in a pure form in the spirit and in the upper echelon of the spirit. You could say, well, you can't start out a corrupt spirit. Well, you don't have to. These are what's going to happen in the future. But you have a character that's built in the spirit as your birth. It's almost like for us to imagine it being humanity. No, in God, it's just bam, you're there, right? It's kind of like he speaks and it's already built, you know. But we have to go build it. So for us to understand the way God creates is going to be different. So I'm trying to put it in terms where we can understand the way God creates this situation. But for God, it's not going to be like it is for us to view it. But when you're created in the spirit. This is where your sovereignty starts. You're sovereign, truly sovereign in this spirit realm before you enter your mother's womb. And God births you, and that is the first sovereignty that you have. The place where the later individual will have chosen in their sovereignty who they wanted to become. This is where you choose who you want to become before you get to earth. Maybe you're bombarded with tests. This is my opinion. Maybe you're bombarded with tests. You're bombarded with stresses and burdens. And They cause desires in you. And out of those desires, you are given choices. And out of those choices, you have opinions and you make decisions. Okay. And then in those opinions and decisions, then have what's made or which become determinants of who you are in the spirit. So they could be decisions and thoughts and desires and outcomes to certain tests that are triggered in you. You're not really playing anything out. You're not really doing anything. These are more the thoughts or ideas. And so it's not really like you're still in your purest form, even if you're thinking on a level of weakness or even, thinking of an, and it wouldn't be culminated to a level of wickedness or evil yet. It's just your thought process might be subpar on a spiritual level of holiness, which is showing that that individual that's subpar spiritually in their holiness is not looking good in the spirit realm before they get to the earth. And then there's all different levels. There's a spectrum, but we're all individuals. So we all have individuality. This is where God gives us our sovereignty to choose everything. I personally believe. Because I come to this decision because narcissists become narcissists so early in age. It wouldn't be fair, and I believe God is fair, so it wouldn't be fair for them if they became narcissists at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You know what I mean? And not have opportunity or because of the circumstances or whatever. But then you also have a rebuttal here where it's kind of like you have the empath that grows up with the narcissist in the same household and doesn't become one. You have people that grow up in ruthless situations and become very abundant and great individuals. So this is where the proof it this is where this type of stuff, what I'm talking about, makes sense. And where they talk about in other situations or what they will tell you in the world, I have, I have a different way of thinking. And a lot of us do out there. So this is for entertainment purposes only. So I know you all know that. But with that being said, these are just theories and opinions and thoughts that I have from all of my investigation, experience dealing with individuals, and my own life. So you go through a bombardment of tests and stresses and stressors and burdens, and they cause certain desires, choices, and then become determinants in your mind or in your character. Before you're ever here, then you're placed where you strategically should be placed to walk out whatever it is that you're supposed to do based on who you are and how it is fair for you, regardless if you think it is. Like maybe where you're born, who your family is, everything, the level of affluency, it's fair for you. And it's fair for me. And it's fair for that guy. And I don't believe that the earth changes people innately. I believe we're just whatever we were born as is who we are and who we're going to be. But I think what happens, and if you're going to find Christ, you're going to find Christ. If you're not, you're not. It's all in your destiny. But this is in the sight of God, not us. But this is how it becomes fair. Because you can't just say, well, I'm just going to quit, caring because. Okay, so I'm back. I had to regroup here. But it's okay. So yeah, it doesn't mean that you could just give up on life because you don't know your fruition. Only God does. I'm just giving you an idea. That's where predestination shows up in, I think it's like in Corinthians, but it talks about this type stuff. I mean, and if God is who he is, he's outside time, then if he's all knowing and everything, he's going to be knowing who and what you're going to be in your fruition. But this just helps you understand and me understand kind of in a way, at least my perspective on it. So you're basically, when you're born on this earth, you're already fulfilled into doing whoever you are and whatever you're going to be, whether you're going to be evil or good. And everything is fair for us. Now we may not think so, but in our predeterminate, in our in our birth, before we were birthed in the spirit, and that was our predeterminate. So I believe personally that we're just walking out who we were when we were birthed in the spirit, and the decisions that we made in the spirit maybe in an inkling of a second before you were placed in your mother's womb to be culminated. So to become the person you chose to be a culmination as you enter at conception, it's like what we call the zygote. It's the forming of two individuals. It's the forming by two individuals from the biological perspective. The final stage before the zygote is formed is the presence of two pronuclei. In the process of fertilization, a zygote is the single cell that forms from the fusion of sperm and the egg. At fertilization, the spirit, it is my opinion, the spirit is all ready to become that zygote from those two individuals that conceived. It has made its destiny's choice of what it will do already or who it will be, and that's why the narcissist is almost born a narcissist. We're positioned where we chose, as it is fair for us, because we are placed in the exact position, location, and pre-orchestration of what we deserve in life and how it's fair for us as it pertains to being fair to everybody else in the laws, the rules, and the ordinances that got put in place for its outcomes based on what our original desires were in the spirit, where we were originally first determined. A decision was made through a series of tests and outcomes, but they could have just been, spiritually, all of which would already take place first in the spirit before ever performing any of them in the physicality, in the earth, in the culmination, and all these things. It was already predetermined before you were put down here. But it even talks in the word how God called Jeremiah to be a prophet unto the nations before he was. He already knew Jeremiah. I mean, he's telling you, I knew you before anything he ever created, entailing Jeremiah. He already knew I'm going to make this man's going to be a prophet, man. So it just shows, that's kind of my opinion of how the narcissist becomes the narcissist. And in that, the decisions were already made, maybe of who they were going to be and who they were going to turn into, right? But the individual doesn't know what changes are going to take place, what grace God's going to give them, how they're going to decide to make changes and bring healing. When, if you were to ask them a couple of years ago, they say, man, there's no way I would ever experience this or expected this, but I made these changes, and here we are. But this is in its all fruition, and you will never know those things. Only God does. That's why we don't want to focus on that. But get a little clearer on how the narcissist may have become a narcissist and how they didn't, or whoever didn't, because this is a tricky situation. But for them to become at that early of age, there was some choices and things that had to be made. So how would it be fair? And in my opinion, it's fair because it was done. All of these things were laid down in the spirit realm. Your whole life was before we were even here, and what you would do and how you would do it. This is just for the courts of heaven after. So this is like a big record. This earth is just a recording. It's being recorded, all of it, in a sense, if you want to look at it like that. And there's spiritual judges. There's, God, the Almighty Father, and he's looking down at all of what we do and what we decide and how we lie, cheat, and steal and thieve, or love and live in peace and blessing and honor people and respect others like we need to be respected and have good self-control and treat others like we want to be treated and love God the way we should. So these are all things that he is able to see that we are orchestrating out here. Whether it's behind closed doors or out in the public, it doesn't matter. You can't hide from God. And that's the point. You can hide from us, and that's fine if you choose to. But you can't hide from God. And when God puts things in your hands, he allows you to see some things. And you need to make the right choices. If you see something going on and it's evil, or something evil that was done to you and it was unjust, and it needs to be righted on a level that's on a judicial system level or anything. These things, if you don't take action, then there's a price for that. There's bad reaping, negative reaping, because you didn't do anything. You just sat back while other people were getting unalived. Maybe you were blessed with the ability to save yours, but what are you going to do about it? I mean, you could walk in fear like they're going to be coming after you and all that, but you have to walk in some sort of assertiveness and boldness for you to get any kind of correction on this earth. I mean, and what is the point of living if you're going to be a coward? Really? You have to make the decision at some point that you're going to be who you're going to be, damn it, and you're going to live it out. And if you're going to take me out, you're going to take me out. But I'm going to be going out doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm going out with honor and respect, and the choices I make are not going to be out of fear. They're not going to be out of a cowardice nature. And that's just how I feel. Y'all could take your, I haven't always been here, but this is how I feel. I'm tired. You get tired of being bullied. You get tired of sitting down when you should be standing up. You get tired of laying down when you should be on guard, when you should be fighting back. And that's why the world is the way it is. And if I don't have any witnesses out there, then screw it, man. God will work, and, you know, he will protect me, or whatever happens is his will, you know. But what I do know is fools are going down, period, whether something happened to me or not. And I'll fight till the end of me, because I also know I ain't gonna have freedom until these fools are either put down or in prison. So I ain't quitting. I'm getting my complete and whole freedom, which I have now, but I'm just saying, I want this thing taken care of. Until these people are taken care of, I ain't quitting, y'all. And if God protects me on a level to where you can't hurt, injure, or affect me, then you're screwed. And your best bet is to just end it now before it gets worse. But I wanted to talk about this because a lot of times the narcissist plays victim, you know. They always play the victim. Oh, this happened to me, and it's your fault. It's your fault. You have to pay for it. Everybody has to pay for it because they can't accept the fact that something happened to them in childhood or whatever. And there's tricky different things that can occur, you know. People could say things like, well, this person was evil or that person was evil, and then they changed. They didn't really change. They did. They made positive change because they decided to heal. But a narcissist is a narcissist because they're never going to heal. They're only going to be made worse and more toxic. But that's their choice. The person who makes those changes because they didn't give up on their true self, they just got jaded. And I've been jaded, very much so. But I also decided to come to a place of healing at some point in time, to find Christ at a certain point in time, and to evolve or make change that made new birthings in me so that I could be fruitful regardless of whatever circumstance that I'm going through. I refuse to live in victimhood. And that's why it sucks sometimes for the empath, because we refuse to live in victimhood. But a lot of times empaths are walking around blinded to what the hell they're doing. So you keep feeding the enemy, housing the enemy, putting a roof over the enemy's head and paying the enemy's light bill, and putting money in the enemy's pocket and blessing them with all of your fruit while they devour you with it. But what happens is you get jaded, and that's your true self. Your true self is in there, and it doesn't change. I don't believe my true self never changed. I've always been innately who I am. My mind, will, and emotions, that's what changes, or that's what has an effect. Those are tools for your innate true self. The narcissist doesn't change because they sacrificed the true self and gave up on the fruits of the spirit. There's no other way to look but to be inverted toward the abyss, really. But for us, we get jaded, and we may aim our level of consciousness that way. Either leave it on the 3D, give up on the spirit, not sacrifice it, but just in our painstaking ways from the stuff that we dealt with in our unhealed situations, we choose to be hard-hearted. We choose to not forgive, or we choose to forgive but still live in certain forms of anger or ignorance or annoyance, or allow things to occur. Or instead of being our true self, authentically and working on that wholly. And we may care more about ourselves. We may do different things. That's like sin or a sinful nature, but it's not to walk in a state of mind and a state of living where you just rebuke all things God created, to be a master terminator of destruction to all life on the earth. There's a big difference. But at some point, you may get some new knowledge, wisdom, or understanding, or hear from somebody that is able to give it to you in a way that you can understand it. Maybe people have been forceful with it, or they've told it to you in a way it didn't make any sense. You weren't able to feel it, for it to be tangible, for you to swallow it spiritually, so that you could grab a hold of it and for it to manifest in you what the Spirit of God is really trying to explain. So you have to be kind of prepared to receive it. So you have to be fertile. I always think of, the farmer and the land. It's got to be dug up. It's got to be prepared. It's got to be planted correctly, and it's got to be watered. It's got to be taken care of into its fruition for it to show fruit. And that's how anything is. And then instead of living, you could be living out of ego, which is overcompensation for all of the wounds that you have, the things that you don't meet up to, expectations you don't meet up to, and you're still trying to act like you meet up to them or prove to people that you are that when you're not. And it's unhealing. Unhealed people do unhealed things, and they fake things, and they elaborate on things they shouldn't, whatever. They look out for maybe just themselves, but when you become your true authentic self, you care about what is good for all. And generally, I would say that comes with your innate spirit. So if you're doing things out of jealousy or greed or whatever, you may do that for a time, but you feel the conviction in your heart for doing it. And you may go through with it for a while and then change, The same thing with being jaded. You can go through some horrible situations in life, and it could jade you for a long time, or it could take you a long time to heal from that. And then you can have something occur in your life that could be horrible, and it could be evil to the point with decision that you can't live like that or live with and around these individuals. Now you're choosing a side firmly, and that's what you need to do. Now, you don't have to push your opinions on people. You can just discuss your opinions if they want to hear them, or you can have a channel like mine. You don't have to come to it. You don't have to like it. You don't have to listen to it. Go somewhere else if you don't. But these are just my life and how I experience it, how I see it from the things that I read and the things I've been through, and how I made change in my life. Hopefully I can help others. And that will cause you to look more inside at your true self, like, who am I, and what do I truly want? What are the desires of my heart? And it will take you out of depression as you do that. And you will start allowing your mind, will, and emotions to be controlled more from your innate true self and your inside voice and your intuition, and to show up with creativity and common sense, maybe where you didn't have common sense, but you may have not known it because you were too pompous to try to understand it. Sometimes you go through hurtful things and they really hurt you on a way to where it really stunts your growth in your God-given abilities to grow spiritually in a good way. But then you also can go through things that are hurtful and horrible that will draw you then closer to God. So it's kind of weird on how it can work. It just depends on how you are in how your heart is ready to receive or not, or what it did to you to make those decisions or to change those things, those decisions. And so from there, that's kind of what happens. So you can have an evil person, and something can occur. They could hear something new, or they can decide to want to listen to something they didn't want to, or heal that wound, but they didn't give up on their true self like the narcissist. So they could look like an evil person for decades, and then they can go to prison, or they can have anything happen, or just be a regular person out here, and they were just a jerk for years, and now they're different. They found the Lord and they've changed, or whatever. That's because they healed that wound. They went back to their true self, their innate true self, and they let that be the leader. And that's where you reach God, because all things come from within, and it starts within from the spirit realm through God. to us, to our innate self, from our innate self, using our mind, will, and emotions to help us as tools to get the job done out here. It could be used righteously or not. But the narcissist, they put to death the true self. So they just have the mind, will, and emotions, and they think it's the true self. But that is like the stuff that is all corrupted or can be corrupted without control of the innate true self. And God leading the innate true self, spirit. So you just have your mind, will, and emotions. You put everything else to death, including the fruits of the spirit. You cannot do anything good. You're just a shell. And a shell is always going to be, that vacuum is always going to be filled with something. It ain't going to be good. All good God-given stuff is what they put to death. So you're a shell now because the good God-given stuff is left or been put to death. They cut off the blood flow to it to where it died. And then what do you think's going to come in that vacuum? That empty place.